This is Pete Jones, and you are listening to the Dragons Are Real podcast. Episode 6, Skills. Today I'm going to talk about non-combat skills. Every game these days has some skill mechanism built in. Back in the original game, in the original Dungeons & Dragons, there were no rules for non-combat related skills other than magic. That was until the introduction of the thief, which brought in skills like pickpocketing and finding secret doors. The player described to the GM what they were doing, and the GM would give them a reply. If the player was not sure, they would ask the GM for clarification, and the GM would elaborate. So, for example, if you were searching for a hidden compartment, the player would say, "I want to search the bed." The GM would say, What exactly are you doing? The player would reply, "I'm going to take hold of the headboard, I'm going to tap it with my knuckle, I'm going to feel around, see if anything moves." The more he described, the GM would make a decision as to whether something was found or whether it was missed. And the players had to be quite specific. There was no, "I'm going to the room and searching the room and making a roll." As a GM, have you ever been in that situation where you describe the scene and someone pipes up, "I want to make a perception check"? What is that player saying? Is that player saying, "The GM's not giving me enough information and I want more than you're giving me"? As a GM, you should describe everything that's in the room. And if people are going to shout out to you, "I want to make a perception check" each time, does that mean that then you hold information back? I'm going to give them half the information, and if they pass the perception check, then I will give them the rest. And what happens if that person fails? Is anybody else in the room to make the same perception check? I believe if you perceive it, I should tell you about it. So as a GM, you've got to decide, when do I even call for roll? Well, you call for roll when the difference between success and failure would be interesting. If it's not, there's no need for it. What if they don't succeed? Can I try too? Does the best person try first? Or do you allow everybody to attempt to try? And when should individuals in the party make a roll as opposed to the party as a whole? And finally, how do you determine the different degrees of success or failure based on that roll? A couple of things to look at as well is, how many skills do you need in your game? Do you have lots of skills or a few skills? Are skills an excuse to stop people role-playing? If people scour their sheets to look for the skill they need, they don't need to role-play it. They make a skill check and they pass or succeed. This may benefit players who are not very good at role-playing. However, the detriment is, does it reduce role-playing, as people will just look to their skills first? And something else to consider is, what happens to players who aren't very good at communicating? They may not be good at negotiating in real life, but if there is a skill that does that, which is a simple pass or fail, their character can do things that their player couldn't do. So let's look at some systems and how they calculate the use of skills. Probably the most basic way is the ability check, as used by games like the Black Hack. There, a player rolls a d20 under their attribute, and if they succeed, then they have succeeded in that skill. What you can also do is roll under the attribute, but higher is better. So if your attribute is 15 and you roll a 4, you succeeded, but not very well. If you roll a 14, then you've succeeded very well, and maybe the GM gives it more information. The downside to this ability check is there's no way to improve. Usually your characteristics are the ones you stay with throughout the game, and you can't improve your strength or your agility. The D6 skill system is the one that's used in Dungeons & Dragons and games like Lamentations of the Flame Princess. And in that, if you have the skill, you roll a 1d6 and you have an X in 6 chances of completing. So someone that's not very skilled would have a 1 in 6 chance. Somebody that is highly skilled may have a 4 in 6 chance. And the skills you have are usually defined by your class. It's also used for finding secret doors or finding traps. And then there is the Middle Road system from a Rod of Lordly Might website, and I'll leave a link to this in the show notes. Basically, in this system, you have predefined skills, and every character can be one of 4 levels in those skills: unskilled, skilled, expert, or master. All characters start unskilled, apart from those classes where appropriate. So for example, a thief would be skilled in lockpicking, while all other classes would be unskilled. Thieves would be the only class that would be allowed to improve based on their level. All other classes to improve would be through gameplay, through practice, through training, or reward from a group or individual. Each of the 4 skill levels is assigned a polyhedral dice, from D6 to D12. The GM could also apply modifiers from Moldvay during contests, and could add ad hoc modifiers where necessary for an advantage or a disadvantage. The 2 parties would then make a roll known as a skill contest, and the highest roll would win. A natural 20 versus a natural 1 would always be a success no matter what the modifiers. If there's no clear contest between 2 sides, the GM would set a target number, usually around 5. To increase a skill would require a training period and a cost. You would also need a master to train you to the next highest level, or an expert who could train people from unskilled to skilled. So unskilled would be a D6. To become skilled, you would require an expert and master to train you. It would require 1 month training and 1,000 gold pieces, and that would increase your dice to a D8. To move from skilled to expert would require a master to train you, would take 3 months and 3,000 gold pieces, and that would increase your skill dice to a D10. And finally, master. That require another master to train you, would take 6 months of training and 10,000 gold pieces, and that would increase your skill dice to a D12. Do we need skills in our games? Well, it's down to personal preference, really. In the old way of doing things, there were no skills, and it was down to the interaction between the GM and the players. If the players wanted more information, they asked the GM, and if it was appropriate, the GM would tell them about it. And it was more down to the player skills than it was to the character's abilities. Nowadays, though, most games have gone to skill abilities. Doesn't matter which system you use, they each have their benefits and their drawbacks. But with a skill system, you're always open to that phrase. Can I make a perception check? You've been listening to the Dragons Are Real podcast. You can contact me by leaving a message via the Anchor app, or visit the podcast website, petejones.neocity.org, or on OSR Anchorites at the Audio Dungeon Discord. Thanks for listening. The opening music is Siesta by Jazar. The closing music is Controlled Distress by BizBaz Studio.